What is going on, everybody? My name is Joseph, and today I want to show you how I built a white oak sit-stand conference desk with a power supply in the middle. So let's get into the build. So my first step, now that I have the design already, is material selection. So I'm going to lay out all of the boards that I'm going to need for this desk, and I'm using 6/4 white oak. One thing to make sure you do when you are milling all of your material, I did not do this. Make sure your joiner beds are nice and waxed up, so that way you have a lot easier time sending your material through your jointer. I realized this about halfway through and waxed it, and everything was going a lot smoother, you would say. Once I have one face and one edge jointed, I'm going to take it over to my table saw and rip everything to the same length. Once I have everything ripped to the same length, I'm going to work on laying out the orientation to figure out which side will be the top and which side will be the bottom, and also making sure that my grain orientation is alternating so that way I don't get any warping or cupping down the line. But I'm also going to be adding some C-channel so that way I know that it will stay dead flat for years to come. Once I have that all done, I'm going to send everything through my planer quite a few times to get them all down to the same thickness. Then I'm going to do the in and out method, which is where you write IO on all of your joints, take them over to your jointer, and the I goes on the inside against the fence, and the O goes on the outside away from the fence, and you can see there you get a really, really clean joint. Now that they've all been in and outed, I'm going to add a couple clamps, just lightly press them down so that way I can check all my joints and make sure that we are good and ready for a glue up. Once that is all set, I'm going to hit it with some dominoes for alignment. If you don't have a domino, don't worry, you don't need to do this. I just have this tool, so I do this step. A biscuit joiner works great, or you can do nothing at all and just put some cawls across it and do your best to get it as flat as possible during the glue up. And if you are using dominoes or biscuits, just know that it's not necessary to get glue in all of the holes for those. This edge joint is the strongest joint really there is, I think. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but it's very, very strong. So don't worry about that. Just worry about getting the glue evenly spread on all of your joints. One thing I didn't show here, I wanted to make like a funny video. I recorded it on my phone, but never recorded it on my camera. Is I used an unnecessary amount of clamps because I thought it would just be a funny video. That's why we just go to 4 clamps to about 20. Once the glue is all dry, I let my glue up sit overnight. I will cut it down with my track saw to its final length before cutting the half circles on each side, which will make this a pill-shaped table. Also, make sure that if you do have a track saw and you're using it and maybe you're kind of new to it or anything like that, when I first got mine, I didn't know that I should be taking a few passes whenever I'm cutting anything thicker than like an inch. So I usually take 2 to 3 passes to get my tabletops cut to their final length, because if not, you get a lot of burning, you get a lot of pinching, and it's just overall a lot harder on your tool. Now that I got some of that glue scraped off, I'm going to be doing some sanding, and I'm not going to show you all of that, but I'm just going to let you know that I do sand from 120 all the way up to 180, water popping, marking pencil lines across the whole table, and then sanding until they are completely gone before I move up to the next grit. And I picked up the Rockler ellipse jig. A regular circle jig is fine. I just wanted to try out some ovals eventually. So this was the first time that I ever cut any circles. And one thing to note is you do not need to go that deep. I went even deeper on the first one. And this one I still probably went too deep before I cut it off with the jigsaw. You probably only need to make a couple passes before you take off the rest with the jigsaw and then hit it with a flush trim bit. Now that we have our table to its final size, I'm going to add some threaded inserts to attach the lift hardware or the sit stand desk hardware to this tabletop. I used a Forstner bit to make a tap so that way I know where exactly to put my Forstner bit when I drill out for the threaded inserts. You can just use a regular drill bit, but a friend of mine told me that he uses a Forstner bit and it's just a lot cleaner, and it is a lot cleaner when you use a Forstner bit. So that's what I've been using. Now I'm going to be making a little jig to route out the spot where I'm going to be putting my C-channel. This C-channel is from Bidwell and Iron. I am an affiliate of theirs, so if you're interested in using some C-channel on your next build, make sure you use code Gerber10, get you 10% off, and I will link all of that in the description below. And then also, whenever I'm using a router, I don't know if I said this earlier, just make sure you take shallow passes, because it's going to be a lot easier on your bit, a lot easier on the motor on your tool. So just take your time, go slow. I know it's kind of annoying, I just want to get it done in one pass, but in the long run, you're going to get a lot cleaner result if you're taking shallower passes and less chance of the router kicking and then messing up something on the table that's going to take you a lot longer to fix. Then once I've reached my desired depth for the C-channel arms to fit into, I'm going to use this wrench that actually came with my router to set the depth stop. So the C-channel is an 1/8 inch C-channel, and so that happens to be about the same as my wrench. Then I'm just going to slowly work my way down until I've reached my depth stop. This is something that you don't necessarily have to do. The C-channel will work fine without recessing it and making it flush with the table. And now I'm going to do that same process using my Forstner bit to give me my point of reference so I know where to drill to put all of my threaded inserts. And then I left this in to show because I got one of these threaded insert things for your drill bit thinking, oh, this will be a lot easier and then I won't have to do it by hand. And I blew this drill bit out, like all the threads were just completely sheared off. So just do it by hand with an Allen wrench instead of buying something that now you're gonna have to return. So the next thing here we're doing is I centered the power outlet or power box, whatever you'd like to call it, in the center of the table. I didn't really know how I was gonna go about doing this, so I kind of went a bunch of different ways. But the way I would suggest is you don't need to drill those Forstner bit holes. If you have a track saw, that's what I'm using, a track saw attachment on my router. If you don't, I would just set up some kind of straight edge or reference that your router can follow along and do the same thing where you cut down, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Then you cut the rest out with your jigsaw. Then you'll use a flush trim bit or a template bit to follow around the piece that you've already cut with your router from earlier, like you see me doing here, and then I just keep taking the rest off as I go down, and then I will actually flip the table over. You can't really tell here, but I flip it over and use another flush trim bit to take off the rest of the material that is there, so I have my perfect little rectangle for the power box to sit into. It was a little snug, so I used the sanding block, sanded the edges, and then I was able to get it to slide right in. And now we are on the home stretch of this build, so the last and final thing that you have to do is apply finish. I'm using Rubio Monocoat's Pure. I'm using the 2-part with the accelerator, so that way it is fully cured in a couple of days instead of like 14 days, or I always forget exactly how long it takes if you don't use the accelerator. But if you use the accelerator, it only takes a couple days. So when you're applying this, I pour it on and then I use that scraper to move it all around. Then I use a white Scotch-Brite pad to rub it all into the fibers of the wood. Make sure and do both sides at the same time. So I always do the bottom first, and then I have a separate video showing how to apply this, and I will link that below. But once you've covered the entire table and worked it in with your Scotch-Brite pad, you wait about 10 minutes, then you come back with some dry rags and start wiping away all of the excess. And I do this one side at a time until your rags come back completely dry. And if you don't want to do this step completely by hand, you can buy some buffing discs. Surf Prep makes some for a 5 and 6 inch sander with the Scotch-Brite pads. I'll link those below. Or if you have a buffer, that also works great. Alright, so that is the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you liked it as much as I liked making it. And hopefully I'll see you on the next video. Take care.